Hey everyone, it's Will with Military Lawn Cuts, and in today's video I'm going to actually be breaking down for the last 5 years of our lawn care business that we're basically pushing to do about $900,000 this year, and really what the trajectory looked like for every single year and how we grew and the big lessons that we learned at each stage so that hopefully you guys aren't making the same mistake. If you guys don't know, my wife and I, we own 2 lawn care companies. We shoot these YouTube videos a lot for really, people that are just wanting to grow their business and develop their leadership, build an asset ideally that can run without them. You're not always working in the business, but now to start to work on the business. And so how do you transform that from just getting started to growing your business to building a true asset for yourself? Well, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. As we go through this, so year 1, I've got my handy dandy notepad right here. So for the very first year, the total revenue that we did, and I'm counting this as a full year. I did start a year prior, but it was just kind of part-time. First full year, we did $125,000 in the first year. I remember it was just myself, and I had about a helper or 2, and then my wife also came over and helped out as a Aldi manager. Or she used to be a manager at Aldi, and she came over and helped a little bit on the office side on that, which was a little bit premature. I don't recommend that for most people at $125,000, but it really helped us jump up to this next revenue mark. So the next year we actually pushed all the way up until $365,000 in annual revenue. What I wanted to really mention here is this growth span right here was really I think the biggest lesson is we were just really figuring things out. Like, we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what we didn't know, figuring things out. And we were just trying to grow top line revenue like most of you guys. And we were offering a lot of services: tree trimming, sod, mowing, weed control. Yeah, just really anything that involved lawn and landscape. We were doing it. We were really busy figuring things out. It was very stressful during this time because Larissa actually stepped over full-time and started to help in the office full-time. And so to support that while also, pay the bills and stuff, it was pretty tight. But we made it work, we made it happen, and we were all basically hands on deck. We were all working in the business, even Larissa, trimming bushes, mowing lawns, and just, a lot of you guys just getting started. In year 3, after we did $365,000, we really tried to ramp up tremendously. So we were able to jump all the way up to $630,000 this year. What I want to tell you is, because we were basically doing full service lawn and landscape, again, tree trimming, sod, bush, bed maintenance, anything to deal with lawn and landscape, we were doing it. And so I think the biggest lesson here that I would say is we were running around like we were chickens with our heads cut off. Chickens with heads cut off. It was rough. All right, we did planting of bushes and trees and all kinds of stuff and rock beds, and customers were like, "Hey, do you do retaining walls?" And we're like, "Yeah, let me watch a YouTube video real quick and I'll get right out there." We were doing everything, and we were straight running around like chickens with our heads cut off. I still remember that spring rush. The phones were ringing. We would literally be on the phone and 3 calls would come in. It was crazy. There was so much work. We were just accepting all these kinds of jobs, so busy, understaffed with the amount of volume, and we didn't know what we didn't know. That was crazy. I don't recommend that on anybody, going from $365,000 to $630,000 while still basically doing all full services for landscaping. What we did after this year is we reflected a lot. We did some research, and we're like, look, we're so busy during the spring rush. How are we going to go from $630,000 to $1 million? We're going to need so many people in the office. We're going to need an operations manager. We're going to need all this overhead, but yet it's still hard to pay the bills. What we did is we basically simplified our services. So we cut out tree trimming, we cut out sod, we cut out plant installations, We cut out rock beds. And what we did was, I'll do it real quick right here, but let's just say, for example, you have 100% of your revenue, right? And maybe like your mowing makes up like 50%. And then your weed control makes up, let's say, 30%. And then all of a sudden your bush and bed service is maybe like 15%, right? And you just start going down at the end of the year. And this is basically what we did. Like at this point we were like, okay, sod, we did tree trimming, we did a lot of services like plant install. And all of a sudden, when we got down to these ones, these were like 3%. This was like 2%. This was like maybe 3%. And we were like, all right, Ray Kroc style with McDonald's, if anybody doesn't know that story. They basically had 95 options on the menu and they got it down to like 9 or 10. And they're like, this is what we're going to do. Everything else is cut out. This is what makes the money. This is what pays the bills. This is what the customers want. This is what we're going to give them. Instead of catering to everything. And so what we said was, we were like, all right, we're getting rid of planting. Why? Also, because we were getting a lot of complaints on those. You can go out and do a 100% job for a plant installation, but if the customer doesn't water it for the next 2 weeks and it dies, guess whose fault it is? It's yours. So you have no control over that. We want to have control over what we can, do. So tree trimming, we just didn't have a lot of that. So we were just like, hey, let's nix that. Sod, a little complex there. With like estimating and all that stuff. Like not complicated as far as like me being able to do it, but like scaling it on a larger term. That's what we did. We basically got down to, these are 3, but we got down to basically 5 core services. So all of a sudden, I want you guys to see what happened here. So look at this crazy growth, 125,000 to 365,000 to 630,000. And all of a sudden in year 4, when we made those switches, guess what happened? We did $550,000. We went down negative $80K. But I distinctly remember going through this spring rush here and being like, wow, this spring rush is easy. I'm like, I'm not running around picking up plants, dealing with an upset customer that doesn't like the tree we installed. Like, it was nice. It was so nice. And going from this spring rush to this spring rush, I was like, man, this is easy. I got to a point where I was semi-bored by the end of the spring rush. I'm like, what else can I do? Like, And so most people with their pride and ego might be like, oh man, like, we went backwards. And like, I slightly had that too. Like, I'll admit, like, I'm like, oh man, like we went backwards. This isn't cool. This isn't good. But what it did is it built the foundation with us going to basically simple services and allowing us to focus on what we're good at and what the most of the volume is at. Watch what happens in year 5, which is actually this year right now. We are on track this year, since we're already halfway through the year, we just ran the numbers, to do $900,000. We are on track to do $900,000 going from $550. And so when you look at this difference, okay, this is a $350,000 difference. And the key point in here also is we were able to start our second location. Why? Because we simplified services. This is really important. I wanted to share this with you guys because 5 years, I see most people trying to get past the $500,000 mark and they're just running around like a chicken with their head cut off. They're working 16-hour days and it's not sustainable. It's not. You have to simplify services. There's a reason why True Green only does one service, weed control, fertilization. That's their core focus. There's a reason why Apple focuses on 1 to 2 to 3 products, right? They have the iPad, they have the iPhone. These big companies that are able to scale multiple locations because they simplified their services. And so with that, what I want to share with you is if you are thinking about shedding some services, I highly, highly recommend getting to the end of the year, taking a look at what services are you making the most money in. Pick the top 3 to 5 and focus on those. That is what's going to allow you to scale. Because every time you add a service, you create layers of complexity. Now, what do I mean by that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Every time you add one service, one service, you are adding multiple layers of complexity inside of your business. And let me explain why. Today, we are going to say sod. We're adding sod to our business. We're like, hey, sod sounds good. Let's start to do it. We can make a lot of money. We can make $3,000 a sod job. Great. Guess what happens when you add sod now to your services? Okay. Number one, there's a process that you now have to train the field crews on. This could take a month, literally a month, depending on how often that you do sod. If you were like us, you only do sod in the spring and the fall because it's a seasonal thing and you don't want to do it in the midsummer of Texas, guess what? You got to train your crews now. It could take 6 months if you're only doing a handful of sod jobs. Now, if you're a designated sod company and you're doing it 5 days a week, obviously the training is going to be much quicker. And yeah, dive into it, right? But if you're only doing it as an additional service where it's only 3 to 5% of your revenue, it's literally going to take months to get them trained up because there's a lot that goes into it. You need to measure the sod. You need to know what different types of sod to put. Is it in the shade? Is it in the sun? They need to know how to flag the sprinkler heads. They need to know how to cut it out. They need to know how to lay the sod. They need to know how to water the sod. They need to be able to educate the customer on how to care of the sod after 2 weeks. There's a lot that's involved. There's coordination with getting the sod delivered, and then you have a certain time frame that you can actually install the sod. There's so many layers here, right? Okay, so that's just the field crews. Not just the field crews. It's like, okay, great. The owner or the operator or you already know how to do sod. Great. Well, guess what? As you scale off the office side, you need to educate and train the office on how to communicate effectively and sell it to the customers. So when a customer calls and they have questions on sod, guess what? They're not going to know the answer. Guess who they're going to call? You, the owner. And if you're trying to build a business that runs without you and you're constantly getting calls with sod, again, it's different. If you're doing this full time 5 days a week, by all means, because guess what? After the third type of the same question, they're not going to call you. But if it's weird one-off questions, they're going to continue to call you. You need to educate and train your office. And there's a lot that goes into it. How much do I water? What time do I water? When's the best time to sod? What type of sod should I install, right? Your office needs to know all this stuff and get trained on it. Now, the third thing is going to be if you do add a service, and again, we're just using sod, but you can use this for any type of service, right? You're always gonna have to do training for the field crews, educating on the office side, and inventory. Right? Inventory and supply management. So this is going to be, right off the bat, if you need to order sod, somebody's got to order the supply. You are probably going to need sprinkler heads because guess what? When you do a sod job, you're going to have to adjust the sprinkler head. Sometimes depending on how deep or high the sod is, you need to put an extension on the sprinkler head. And maybe your guys bust a sprinkler head. You're going to need parts for sprinklers. And so again, now you're having to manage more inventory for sod because you are offering this as a service. Now the fourth thing is going to be complexity here, and it doesn't really look like a cube, but we'll roll with it, is equipment. So guess what? You guys do sod now, but now you need a sod cutter, and now you need certain tools and a rototiller if there's a little bit of grass, you'll rototill it up. All of a sudden, now you need extra equipment and new equipment, and guess what? Now maintenance needs to be done on the rototiller and the sod cutter, or if you're not buying it, then maybe you're renting it. And so you can see this is one service. And if you offer 15, 20, 25, 30 services, which we did at a certain time, you can just see the layers of complexity of 1, 2, 3, 4 times however many services you have. If you have 10 different services that you offer, that's 40 layers of training the field crews on how to do that. Educate the office on how to talk to the customer and how to sell it, right? The inventory, the equipment. And so if you want to build a business that can grow without you being there each day, or that relies on you, and build an asset and a business that can run without you, the key is simplification. It amazes me when you see these type of companies that build one product. That's it. One product like True Green. All they're going to do is weed control. That's it. Now they do tree and shrub. Okay, 2 services, right? They honed in on what they want. And so it's really important if you're in your first or second year of business, hone in on what you're good at. Figure out what are the most services that you do and focus on that. that will allow you, you may have to take a year and slow down growth or even go backwards. It's okay. I mean, you saw us, like we literally went $80,000 backwards on top line, but this year we're going to be growing 350,000 because we added our second location and we can scale because we simplified. Hopefully this helps you guys. If it did, hit the like button and we will see you guys in the next video.